In this week's the news, a new fiscal sinkhole seems to have opened up. We send our most effective weapon to the Ukraine. Ambulance use numbers impacted by being the literal ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And a new level of human endurance has been unlocked in Christchurch. All that and more in this week's the news. Hello there, kia ora, welcome to this week's the news. I'm Paul, and I do all my own stunts. Budget documents have revealed a nearly $8.5 billion fiscal hole and a warning that broad-scoped savings, like firing 10,000 civil servants to pay for tax cuts and tobacco kickbacks, would have diminishing returns. The report said this was to be expected based on previous fiscal consolidations like the ones demanded by the coalition and exhausting the funding cuts to low-hanging fruit, leaving little room for growth. When asked for comment, Nicola Willis, seen here imitating Charles Foster Kane from Citizen Kane, said, "Please refer to any past comment I've made blaming Labour for the predictable outcomes of my decision. I stand by those, even though I've been in the job for 2 years now." This week saw crowds descend on Tūranga Waiwai Marae for the first koroneihana of Te Arakanui Queenie Ngā Wai Hono e Te Po, with 3 noticeable absences, the leaders of the coalition. Instead, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon chose to attend the announcement of the opening date for Ikea an hour away in Sylvia Park. When asked about the choice, the Prime Minister, seen here showing up for the opening of an envelope, said, "Well, the event down the road is all about building a stronger future together," and I thought, where do you go when you want to find things that you build together? Well, Ikea, of course. 36,000 nurses around the country this week went on a 2-day strike over an almost year-long deadlocked negotiation between the Nurses' Union and Te Whatu Ora, much to the annoyance of Health Minister Simeon Brown, seen here holding all the respect he has for highly skilled, well-cared-for professionals who dedicate their life to improving outcomes for all New Zealanders. He left a note on his office door saying that the strike was unfair as it was disrupting more than 13,000 surgeries and appointments. In response, nurses pointed out that the lowest per-person per capita spend on health in nearly 3 decades, backroom support service cuts, frontline service shrinkage, and increased costs in primary health care that's led to 1 in 6 New Zealanders refusing to see a GP and 45% of New Zealanders refusing to see a dentist due to increased costs, are actually what's putting people at risk. Said Minister Brown, "Yeah, sure, but we gave tobacco companies tax breaks, so what are they complaining about?" Defence Minister Judith Collins undertook a secret visit this week to the Ukraine while the Prime Minister zoomed into a coalition of the willing call to show the country's continued support for the Ukraine in its war against the invading forces of Russia. During the visit, Collins visited sites attacked by Russian missile strikes and war memorials and met with Ukrainian and Polish defence officials. Said the Prime Minister, seen here testing the flavour of his lip gloss of the visit, "This helps cement our unwavering support for the Ukraine against the illegal invasion, and stops Judith from spreading rumours that she's going to roll me as leader." Educators this week claim new curriculum changes were reducing mentions of the Treaty of Waitangi in education documents, a claim firmly rejected by Erica Stanford, the Education Minister, seen here responding to the media, asking her why she took millions in funding for teacher improvement courses and Te Reo proficiency to rush through resources for a rushed curriculum spearheaded by a member of a hard-right think tank that wants to erase all signs of Māoridom from the education sector. She said, "We are committed to the treaty, and commitment to the treaty means raising achievement for tamariki Māori. Everything we've done has been to achieve this. But, to save costs, we figured it was easier to remove the Te Reo version of the treaty from curriculum documents, since they're clearly both the same, and there's never been any arguments to say otherwise. It's never caused any issues before, so what's the point of using both?" Minister for Disabilities Louise Upston, seen here learning what the phrase "the chickens have come home to roost" means, this week announced the limited return of the scheme her government suddenly cancelled in March last year. The Needs Assessment and Service Coordination Scheme would be standardised across the country, with purchasing guidelines introduced last year abandoned, meaning disabled people would have more control over what they spend on, but with a hard limit on spending. Said Upston on the reversal, "This was something we heard really clearly through the consultation process and focus groups on why our government is doing so poorly in the polls, so we knew we had to backtrack far enough out from the next election that people might have forgotten how hard this was on disabled communities and their support networks." Rail Minister Winston Peters, seen here learning who Luke Skywalker's father is, has announced this week that a deal for the much-anticipated new Cook Strait ferries was just months away, as the government confirms it is in the final talks with a preferred shipbuilder. He also pointed out that contracts are yet to be signed, so he wouldn't be naming the builders due to commercial sensitivity reasons. Said Peters, in a few short months we can show the taxpayers exactly how we saved them billions. By spending $671 million on no ferries, that would have seen the first one delivered by now if we hadn't broken the contract by text message, so that we could give tax cuts to the wealthy and tax breaks to tobacco companies. ACT MP Cameron Luxon, seen here not quite getting the ACT Party greeting right, this week accused Western Bay of Plenty District Council of campaigning for the retention of Māori wards in the upcoming referendum, arguing that councils must be seen to be impartial in election and referendum processes. The council itself denies these allegations, pointing out it simply posted fact sheets on how Māori wards work and correcting disinformation spread by people like Western Bay of Plenty councillor and mayoral candidate Margaret Murray-Benge and her partner, the ghost of Don Brash. Said a spokesperson for the council, "We're not shocked to see an ACT MP mistake facts they don't like as a campaign against them. It's not often facts and ACT are on the same page after all." Rotorua Mayor Tanya Tapsell, seen here in Don Brash's idea of a horror film set, has come out criticising Hobson's pledge for using her image and stitching quotes from her from different meetings to create new context in the lobby group's mission to make themselves look as bad as possible around the Māori ward referendum. The group took an unlicensed image from NZME without permission, just weeks after using an image of a courier used without the correct permissions, and spliced together quotes from speeches given 18 months apart. Tapsell said, "I've never been associated with, and I don't ever intend to be associated with Hobson's pledge. If I wanted to be associated with a group known to twist words, spread dangerous disinformation and mislead the public, I'd spend more time with Rotorua Councillor Robert Lee while he's doing training sessions for Voices for Freedom." The government lauded changes that came into effect this week that will mean classic cars can now get warrant of fitness certification annually instead of every 6 months. Said the Prime Minister, seen here cosplaying as Mr. Bean, "Get in, Luzo, we're driving up the cost of living, and that means we need more roadworthy cars for homeless people to sleep in." Hatohone St. John's Ambulance Service says data shows this winter was their busiest on record, with respiratory-related emergencies soaring, backing up other data that shows community illnesses are being reported at a significantly high level for this time of year. With over 50,000 ambulance call-outs in August alone, the highest ever recorded for the organisation, the service is encouraging the public to make use of a range of tools like 24/7 online GP services, visiting GPs and pharmacies where possible. Said a spokesperson for the service, "These tools are important in helping us from needing to take an extra 350 people a week to our hospitals. It could be lower if the government better funded primary health care and the cost of living crisis meant families don't have to choose between heating and eating and the reintroduced copay on prescriptions, but the other services are a good start." And finally, Christchurch woman Gabrielle Wall this week made international headlines for smashing the world record for the fastest 100-metre sprint over Lego bricks. Wall said she spent 2 months preparing barefoot to build the calluses required to do the attempt, including attending a wedding barefoot. A representative for the Guinness World Records said, "You'll note in the video Wall is wearing sunglasses. This is probably to hide the inevitable tears running down her face at the time." Wall's final time was 24.75 seconds for the 100-metre dash. And that's it for this week's The News. Again, thank you for all the support this week. Live long, prosper, be one with the Force, and we'll catch you all next week. Hey, thanks for checking out today's video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe so you get more updates as we go along. We deal with these guys for the rest of the year.